Yes, I can take that one. So Science is a Drag started a few years ago in 2019, and it began with this question of what if we could take the power of science and science communication and combine it with the art and entertainment of drag? And it's a show that features scientists. This could be like researchers, professionals, or anyone who has like a passion or a skill for sharing science, and it invites them to dress up in drag and share their science through a drag performance. And oftentimes, these are people who are trying out drag for the first time. And with that, we also offer like coaching around both the drag performance and the science aspect of the presentation. And we really encourage our performers to show up in a way that is unapologetically queer and authentic to who they are. We've had a variety of kings and queens and performers doing things like turning a live DNA extraction into a burlesque performance, showing us how to floss our teeth using a feather boa, or just giving us some sort of lip sync or stand-up routine with or without scientific slides, or using activities to engage the audience and involve them in that scientific storytelling. And overall, it basically takes the concept of a scientific presentation, which we may not always think is something that's super exciting or engaging, and turns it into something that is like entertaining and relatable and memorable for anyone who attends our events. And I'll add that beyond the entertainment value of like the drag performance, our goal with Science as a Drag is to offer a safe and accessible platform for queer scientists, communicators, drag performers, or anyone who is a fan of any of those things, and provide a place where they can challenge the cis and heteronormative structures and stereotypes that exist in STEM through an intersectional approach. And we really try to cultivate this shared understanding that our differences have so much to offer to different scientific fields, especially since these fields traditionally often will exclude or disregard these types of differences that people have.
Yeah, I can take that one. We've been really fortunate that the kind of interest and demand in for this show is so high. Our shows have actually often booked out within minutes. I think the last one was sold out. The tickets are free, but it was booked out within about 10 minutes of registration opening, which is kind of wild for a science themed event. It's a bit atypical. But I think that's because Science is a Drag, it's not just a queer show for queer people. The beauty of drag, if you're familiar with it, is that it's so kind of loud and sparkly and in your face that whether or not you consider yourself like a science person, you kind of can't help but stop and pay attention and like want to see more, want to participate in that. In terms of what we've seen for our audience, they've reported that over half of them have sort of stated that they wouldn't have come to well, they haven't been to science themed events in the past, and they wouldn't have come to our show if it wasn't for the drag. So we're actually reaching the people we want to reach, those who are pretty disengaged with science and don't really feel like it's a safe space for them, which is pretty rare in the sort of science engagement, science communication space to reach that kind of audience that's siloed. Almost 90% report feeling more comfortable at our shows than typical science themed events, which is amazing, and they all want to come back for more. Because I think it's the emotional impact of engaging with science at our shows that hits different. And we've got audience members and performers alike connecting different parts of their identities together and really embracing who they are fully, sometimes for the first time. And that's definitely not something you traditionally see in science spaces, which are often quite stoic and stuffy and professional, as Sean mentioned earlier. For our performers, there's sort of a longer lasting impression because they realize they can be the role models that they maybe didn't have when they were coming up through these science spaces, these academic spaces. And then we actually have them kind of mentor our next generation of presenters, and hopefully bringing their whole selves to work, which Daniel, I think, can touch on a little bit later. In the sort of few shows that we've hosted since we started in 2019, we've reached hundreds of people in person tens of thousands more online through the beauty of sort of social media and Instagram lives and things like that, and been featured in local and international publications. We recently won an international award as well for inclusive science engagement, which is really moving recognition to receive for this project. And we're starting to see similar events popping up around the country and around the world. Flattery is, wonderful.
Yeah, so this project, like I get so animated every time I think about this project. Even up to last night, I was talking to someone about it, and they were like, "Wow, I can tell you're really into this thing." And I was like, "Yeah, like this definitely helped me grow personally." I realize the power of authenticity and accepting all of me, like the nerdy parts, the masculine and feminine parts, the parts that just wants to be fabulous all the time, like all of me, and knowing that I don't have to exist in small little boxes, or compartmentalize my life. Science as a Drag really brought that to the fore for me. It amazed me how an entire bar was full of non-scientists, as Carrie was mentioning earlier, and they were just so excited to hear about science. Like, this is not normal, and it was also really great for me to see that we were able to create a space for scientists like myself to just publicly exist and present in ways that we always wish we could have, but didn't have the opportunity to, within the rigid and heteronormative spaces that we're often in scientific spaces. I personally grew up in a very conservative environment where it didn't really foster self-exploration or authenticity. And Science as a Drag really helped to solidify that for me, and to just going back to my first point, to just live as Sean. And that is the power of Science as a Drag, for scientists to live as they are, to bring their whole selves in every aspect. Right. And for folks that are interested in doing a similar project, I would also say to just bring that authenticity, whatever type of project that you're trying to work on, whether it's Science as a Drag or any other type of creative process, to just trust your gut and surround yourself with people that can help move that project forward. Because this Science as a Drag is a team effort. Like, we all pulled on each other's strengths to make this happen, and we keep doing it, and it's really fun. So I would advise other folks to surround themselves with a supportive team, and also, like, don't take on people who will speak negatively about it, because obviously there will be people. As I mentioned, I was from a very conservative environment, and after Science as a Drag, there were people that were not happy in my hometown of Barbados, and I just had to. That was also a moment of me growing, of me saying, well, I don't actually care about what you're saying. This is me, and I'm bringing my whole self to this. Yeah.
I would say overall, like, some commonalities with Sean's experience in terms of how being part of Science as a Drag has led me to express myself more authentically, and to just view, like, the possibilities of, like, what a scientist can be and how a scientist can present in all sorts of new ways. Before being part of attending or producing the show, I came from that kind of typical academic science background, and was accustomed to those, like, typical forums where you would usually hear about science, like the university lectures, the scientific conferences. And I didn't really question much about how these forums were very limited in terms of how science is sort of meant to be presented there, limitations in terms of, like, the diversity of thought being shared, or of who we're seeing as, like, a speaker show up in spaces like this, and kind of how this all stems from this rigid idea of, like, what a scientist is supposed to look like and how they're supposed to behave. And after I'd gone to that first Science as a Drag show, and had seen queer people share science in such authentic and creative and just really fun kind of ways, I felt inspired to kind of explore the same thing for myself as a science nerd. And I ended up actually performing in the show after that. And it was such a freeing experience to be able to feel like I was bringing my whole self to that science presentation. It was also the first time I had presented science after singing a J-Lo song, which was a lot of fun. And even being able to highlight certain things that I didn't necessarily think would be like acceptable to share in the traditional science forum, like talking about limitations of how a medical study looked at gender and sexual orientation, was very validating to have that be like well received by the audience. And at the time when I performed, I remember being a little bit nervous about the possibility that my coworkers might find out that I had tried drag one time. Even though I was out as a gay man in my personal life, it wasn't something I had decided to share in the workplace at that point. But after having that experience and being in that positive and supportive environment, I did end up going on the journey to coming out at work, and even found myself like finding the opportunity to take on like a leadership role in the company's 2S LGBTQ plus employee group, which prior to that I had been kind of hesitant to go near. Really inspired some positive changes for me, like professionally. And I also just felt more free to explore more of my like gayer personal interests. Like Carrie was just reminding me how I started taking like high heels dance classes, and she was like, do you think maybe that's something that like Science is a Drag might have led you to? And I was like, that's so true. I don't know if I would have explored something like that without having this experience.
It's kind of the unexpected outcome, or the unexpected power of this show that I'm now realizing is that it empowers us all to kind of take up space, to stand up straighter, and declare that we are enough exactly as we are, and we can take our whole selves to work as much as our personal lives. And you know, for me, I started using labels to describe myself that I hadn't before. You know, I live with a rare autoimmune disease, and I've started using the label disabled to describe myself, because it's true. You know, it's under control, it's managed, but I never felt that I could claim anything like that. And it's like, no, I'm disabled enough. I am queer enough to play in this space, to produce this show. I am enough exactly as I am. And that, yeah, is just one of the more moving things for me personally. And I think that's touched a lot of other people who've participated before.